If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we're back. I am John Wheaton, the right-hand man to Chris Heaven here at Survival Dispatch, and your host for this evening. And I am joined, as I usually am, not as much recently because of a big move, by my friend and colleague, Mr. S2. How are you tonight, brother?
Doing just fine. Peachy.
Just doing all kinds of remodeling projects at home. So, in the new home. So, but tonight, as the title of the live stream will indicate, we're going to talk about what is going on with our justice system and how it seems to be that all of these people are dead to rights, guilty, and somehow they end up getting off, or the people that they were connected to seem to get off. Almost like a conspiracy, but I digress. So tonight we're obviously talking about Jeffrey Epstein and Sean Diddy Combs and all the shockwaves through the cultural and political landscapes, especially since the evidence and narratives seem to be pointing 180 degrees away from what the judgments and latest information that were handed down are. But we'll get to that. Real quick, if you are interested in more information and joining our ever-growing community, go over to our Substack and sign up for a free account. That will get you the Saturday Watch Guide, which is a list of everything that is published throughout the week, including thumbnails, links, and descriptions. It's a great resource for you, and all you have to do is sign up for a free account, and you get it all. Don't forget to check out Carnivalt, as you saw in our opener. Use the code EATMEAT for 10% off at carnivalt.com. Amazing stuff. I've actually had one bag of the chicken. It was incredible. Whipped it up in some tacos, and yeah, quite incredible. Looking forward to get more of that down the road. We are moving first up into our threat environment sit rep, and this is talking about global terrorism and what our current situation is. And we are still at a code red critical level, and we'll show you why here in just a moment. One, there was a Greek-owned cargo ship, Eternity Sea, on July 7th and 8th. Yemen Houthi rebels used a small bomb and bomb-laden drones to attack the Liberian flagged Greek-owned Eternity Sea about 50 nautical miles west of Sana'a. 3 crew members were killed, 2 injured, and the vessel was forced to abandon its route through the Suez Canal. So, threat environment globally, Iran-aligned Houthi militants are escalating maritime attacks, most recently in the Red Sea. Threatening global commerce.
Note they are not screwing around with Americans.
Yes, they know better than that. But, you know, it's kind of crazy when you actually get outside, and I know that S2 knows this because he runs around in these circles. When you get out of the mainstream media drip, it's amazing how many of these terrorist attacks happen. It's daily. It's actually completely and totally daily. And yeah, it's pretty crazy. Elsewhere during the Muharram processions on July 6th and 7th, violent clashes erupted between communities. Hindu man Aja Yadav was fatally stabbed and others injured in the temple. Share this real quick. The temple of Qatir that was attacked. So another attack. And in May, here's the last one. In May, a prominent doctor killed in an attack on the Sagoda hospital. Dr. Sheikh Ahmad Mahmoud was shot dead on Friday inside of the Fatima hospital. And it appears to be an attack. He was 58. So these are large scale, small scale, and individualized attacks that we are seeing. So it is something for you guys to keep in mind, that this stuff is not gone away. It's just a fact that it's not reported on necessarily by the mainstream media, because they don't want you to think that this stuff is going on and that there is a real threat out there. And that threat is Islam, radical Islamic militants all over the world. And they're hell-bent on a global caliphate. And I've been toying with the idea of doing another series, and I hadn't talked to S2 about it yet, but diving into the complete history of Islam and why it's so dangerous. And that may be something that's coming up very soon.
I would think that we should probably take a look at that in the light of how it impacts our modern society now.
Correct. Yep.
Versus the history of it. Everybody knows that Muhammad was a pedophile and all that stuff. So
yeah. Well, and the reality is you can just look at the birth rates and you can see how it is growing, and we are shrinking. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants are becoming more and more extinct, while Islamics, and that's not a race thing. That's our culture. We have a culture too. I know we're supposed to accept every other culture but our own, but we have our own culture. We have Western civilization, and this is a threat to Western civilization. There is a reason, but that's a whole nother subject for a whole bunch more episodes that we will discuss behind the scenes and hopefully be bringing to you soon. Before we get to the main story, I have one, and this is kind of interesting. It's real news, but it's kind of a rebuttal to fake news. We do our new fake news section of the shows here, the podcast, and this is actually kind of a rebuttal to fake news. So the Supreme Court voted 8-1 to allow President Trump to cut federal workforce. If you guys remember, there were a lot of district judges that tried to stop this back a few months ago. Let's watch this from Fox News.
Moments ago, the Supreme Court with a decision that will allow the Trump administration to move ahead with their plans to cut the federal workforce, at least for now. Justice correspondent David Spott, give us the backstory here, reporting live from Washington. Hi, David.
Hi, Martha. A nice Tuesday afternoon win for the Trump administration. And it's funny because the justices normally are on their summer recess right now. Doesn't mean they don't work behind the scenes, but these justices have been busy because of these executive orders and the way they've made their way through the legal process. But this right now is a order from the Supreme Court essentially saying that a San Francisco judge who put a stop to the Trump administration from cutting several federal agencies. They're saying that the Trump administration, in fact, right now can continue forward as the case plays out on its merits. So essentially back in May, several different agencies sued. They said that the Trump administration wanted to make cuts at the Departments of Agriculture, Commerce, Defense, Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, HUD, Justice, Labor, State Treasury, and Transportation, pretty much all of them. Now the Supreme Court is giving the Trump administration victory some almost 6 months into the president's second term here, saying that they can go forward with these reductions in forces. You may remember that this was part of the DOJ effort when Elon Musk was still hanging out around the White House, but President Trump today, Martha, during the cabinet meeting said that some of those DOJ moves made sense, were important, and this was a campaign promise and a promise really of this presidency to cut some of these federal agencies. And now this administration can feel vindicated from the Supreme Court as they move forward and make.
All right. So it appears that now President Trump is allowed to run the executive branch as the chief executive of the country. It's ironic that you have to go through a court battle to get the stuff that's spelled out in the Constitution, isn't this too? I think, are you muted? I think you're muted, bud.
Yeah, I was. Sorry. Yeah, and I actually think this is a perfect segue into tonight's main topic.
Yep. So, which brings us to the main topic, and unfortunately, the recent announcement of Jeffrey Epstein and Sean Diddy Combs have sent a shockwave through cultural political landscapes. This 180-degree shift from the Department of Justice, they made a lot of big promises, and they've yet to deliver on a single one of them when it comes to these situations, the Epstein lists, all of that stuff. And let's take a little walk down memory lane real quick. Robbie Starbuck posted this, and Robbie, if you know Robbie, he does yeoman's work on pulling out corruption and woke crap out of the business world and political world. So this is Pam Bondi on Fox News, which she loved going on Fox News about 4 or 5 months ago, talking about stuff and grandstanding. Let's listen to this short video.
May be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president. I
want everybody to listen to what she just said. She just mentioned 3 things. What she said today does not make sense. So let's go to this. And I'm going to do a little bit of something I don't do it all very often, but I'm going to disagree with President Trump's standpoint on this. I understand to a certain extent that he has a lot of big fish that he's trying to fry right now, but let's watch this a little bit over 2 minutes, and then we'll get a reaction from myself and S2.
Sure. Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
I'm going to pause it right there. Yes, we are, because we understand the implications of someone like Jeffrey Epstein as he has been painted by so many people in the media. We understand the implications of that. That's why people are concerned. And this is not going away. I understand what President Trump is saying. He's like, hey, I'm dealing with crisis. I'm dealing with, international trade. I'm dealing with terrorism. I understand that. But he also needs to understand where we are on this. And we want to know finally. So let's watch this. And now let's watch what Pam Bondi does and what she says. So keep in mind the last video that I just played. And let's watch what she says and listen to what she says.
That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
Okay, S2.
So I had kind of followed this loosely since Bondi got a hold of it. And here's the thing, is they had a problem getting evidence from the New York field office. That was one thing. Secondly, in those files, there was never anything actually said about there anything being a definitive client list.
Right.
So the problem with the files is that just because somebody flew on a plane to his island does not, it's an evidentiary thing. You can't prove that anybody did anything just based on the implication that they had been on the island.
You're correct. You're correct, because it's guilt by association at that point, which is not a punishable crime if you didn't actually commit a crime. So,
however, I'm finding it awfully funny lately that the Supreme Court seems to be ruling in favor of Trump quite a bit, and the possibilities that John Roberts was on that island. He's got some shady shit around him.
Yes.
So
agreed. And one of the things, and this is a thread, this next thing's a thread from Glenn Beck. The thing that's really frustrating about this is that Bondi should have, as a person on Fox News, she was blinded by the celebrity. And let's keep in mind, Bondi is not a conservative. She's not. She's a rhino. She's from that class. She's a Romneyite. She's a McCain supporter. She's not a tried and true conservative. Not like, say, if you had Matt Gaetz run as AG, which was never going to happen. The left would have never allowed that to happen. And some of the right wouldn't have. But she is not a true conservative. Remember, she was anti-gun in Florida, and now seems to be one of the more pro-gun attorney generals we've ever had, but that's at the behest of the president. The other thing to keep in mind is that the DOJ is under the executive branch, but they operate very independently. And there's a reason for that, is because they have to be, one of the reasons that Nixon was actually brought forth and impeached was because of him shutting down special prosecutors, special investigators that were going and looking for evidence. And that is why the DOJ has a certain level of anonymity, but the president can still fire the attorney general and hire and appoint another attorney general. So it's kind of connected, but still kind of operate independently. The real issue is all of the talk of the Epstein client list, and really what could have happened is she could have said, listen, we don't know for sure if there is an Epstein client list, but I have the files on my desk. That would have been a more measured and intelligent response if you did not know there was a client list, because the implication of what she said in that previous clip was, oh yes, I have the client list on my desk. That's how the conversation goes. If you read the transcript, that's what you would gather by just that
Oh,
association of words.
she said the files were on her desk. She didn't say anything about a list.
Right, I understand, but they had just said list, and that's how, like, the way that language works is there needs to be clarification, and that was, in my opinion, a failure on her part to clarify, especially considering that is not the only clip of her saying this kind of stuff.
Like I said, the problem is evidentiary. Is you can't prove that anybody that may or may not be on a list has done anything. That's
Correct.
the problem.
Yep, and that's the real issue. Now, this thread from Glenn Beck, I won't read the whole thing, but I would encourage everybody, if you go on X and go to his account, this is one of his top posts from yesterday. The Epstein evidence list isn't just damning; it's clarifying. No matter what you believe about Epstein's past or fate, 5 conclusions can be logically drawn from the material seized. This thread is for anyone who cares about the truth. This was not a small or isolated operation. Dozens of devices, thousands of photos, labeled photo albums, surveillance tapes, blueprints, foreign passports. It wasn't one man with a dark secret. It was an infrastructure, logistics, and coordination, a system. 2, there's a massive digital footprint, hundreds of hard drives, USBs, CDs, backup servers, some labeled with Nude Girl Pics Book 4, travel logs, employee directories, videotapes. And the real question, why hasn't this been fully disclosed to the public? 3, intelligence involvement isn't a stretch. The Austrian passport with Epstein's face, honey trap style setups, international mobility, too much precision, too much reach, and too many decades undetected. This isn't a wild theory. It's a logical hypothesis. The system's silence is itself evidence. If anyone else had 1/10 of this material, underage photos, coded file names, flight logs, they'd be under a prison. But here, crickets. No prosecution, no answers, no real scandal. And this is his kind of final thing. Our institutions are on trial. This is bigger than Epstein. It's about media complicity, justice deferred, power protected, truth buried. Until this case is fully revealed, every elite institution carries the stench that they can't wash off. I have to say, I do agree with Glenn's thread here. This is much bigger than Jeffrey Epstein. This is it stinks to high heavens, and every piece of evidence needs to be released that can be released. I understand child porn. That's obviously, I genuinely think that's kind of a cop-out reason to me. But Mr. S2?
I've already spoken my piece on it. No matter what we believe, it's what you can prove. It's not what you know.
Yeah.
And if there are videos of people that may or may not be on a list that are engaging in acts with underage kids, then by all means, they should be prosecuted. And then you also have the other thing too, is where was Epstein Island? Is it actually in the jurisdiction of the DOJ?
Right.
And how many other places did he have where these things could have occurred? Like I said, there's too many sticky things in here as to why they can't do. Now, what she should have done in the beginning was just shut up.
Yes.
That's what Bondi should have done.
Yep.
And that's the same thing Patel should have done. Don't say you're going to release it day one. You can't, and you know it. You can't.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And that's really the. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
And that's what Glenn Beck is basically getting at here, is that you knew you couldn't release all of it that you have, so shut up and build a case. A case
Right.
like this that's been going on for decades, involving people like Bill Barr's dad. I mean, all of the Pelosi crowd,
Hmm.
all of them. They were all involved in this,
Yeah.
and they know it. And that's why it's funny that all of them are eerily silent all of a sudden, and that things are starting to turn around.
Yep. Well, and here's a video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll skip through it a little bit, but this is also from Glenn Beck. And well, so Dano, you're actually kind of right, and they explain this in this video. Once again, go to Glenn Beck's if you want to watch the whole thing. But this is on his show. I think day before yesterday or yesterday. But this is about a 7-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing because we're on a time schedule. But let's watch a little bit of this where they talk about the video that was released wasn't even the right camera angle. His cell is in a opposite corner of what camera they actually have a diagram of where it was. So let's watch this.
Is if the jump in the tape wasn't incompetent enough for you, listen to this one. Jason is here with us. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Glenn. What a morning. Wow.
And for those of you that don't know, this is Jason. I forget his last name. He's a former CIA and military intelligence officer. S2 wasn't in the CIA, but he was a military intelligence officer. Betrayal is his last name, Jason Betrayal. He's his investigator and works for Glenn on any kind of government style stuff because he's an expert investigator. Just to give you a background of who that is.
What a morning it is. Okay, so Jason, what else have you found?
Okay, so the more and more we looked at this tape, I started looking. It was just weird because it looked like a janitor's closet. So door 46.
Janitor's closet.
And you were like, shut up. This is not a janitor's closet. I don't know what this is. Well, I was like, I can tell you there's a woman that looks like a janitor that comes out of supposedly the person, there's this cell that they're saying is his cell, which they're not, by the way. This was like people on social media were saying this was the cell. Is coming out with a trash can. So I looked around to see if there was any confirmation on what this cell was. And I found an OIG report from the Justice Department 2 years ago that shows the camera angle and the one camera that was actually working. So you can see the diagram, and I think we actually have it if you're watching this right now. There's a diagram that shows where this camera is. It shows where Epstein's cell is. And the big thing that stands out, Glenn, is this camera doesn't even have eyes on Epstein's cell at all. Like, not at all.
That's incredible.
4 different wings here. There is a service wing, and that's what we're looking at with that door 46. That's like a service entrance or staff entrance. Now, you can't see on the lower level Epstein cell at all. So this is what makes it look even crazier for that 1 minute that's missing. And I will say that, let me just say it this way. I've spent years and years and years looking at surveillance and security camera footage, as you know, in my previous job. I've never seen an over 1 minute jump right at a time that would be very, very, I don't know, just convenient. I've never seen that before in all my years looking at these things.
There's no reason. Why do you say that minute would be convenient? You're just saying that 1 minute being gone is convenient. You're not saying that particular minute is convenient. Important. We don't
in this entire time frame based off of this camera angle. So it's convenient. Like, let's say 60 seconds would be great for someone walking across that lower level. 60 seconds would be perfect for if you wanted to like conceal the fact that someone walked across that area. That's why it would be convenient.
Here's why I didn't buy into this at first. Okay. 60 seconds to get in and open the door and then kill him and then leave. Okay. But look at the diagram. If you look at the diagram where the camera is, there is maybe a foot space where the camera is not able to see where there is a door from the staff area. Okay.
Are you looking at, because I think it's hard to tell from this, are we looking at, is this diagram the top floor or the bottom floor? Jason, do you have any idea?
So it looks like Epstein. So I think Epstein's cell
Top
is on the
floor,
same,
right?
it's on the
This is
top
his
floor.
floor,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the stairs would
These are
be
the upper floors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at where the staff area is. Okay.
Mhm.
See the yellow triangle
Yes.
and the red box where it's his cell. Okay. So there is one way out of the staff area, and it's right below the camera.
Like underneath the floor, essentially, of where the camera is.
Yeah, on the floor. If the camera's
Yeah.
up on a ceiling, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the camera's like, the camera.
I'll stop it there. We don't have to watch it. You can watch the rest of it on his X account. But it's, the different stories that we've been fed about this. First of all, the cameras were cut and there was no surveillance whatsoever. Now we're finding out that there was surveillance that was clipped out a minute, and the explanation given by AG Bondi was that they do this every night. And that this is old camera equipment from like 1998 or 99, which means that it's probably VHS. That's like probably more than that's really before DVDs or any kind of digital interface. Now the recording equipment could have been upgraded, but they're saying that they have to reset it. I don't buy that. As an audio video guy, I don't buy a lot of that. But it's plausible, I guess. But then also this camera's not even really pointing at his cell, and there is small windows of access that if you wanted to remove evidence from somebody getting in and out of his cell, clipping out about a minute would do that. S2?
Well, there was a rumor. I don't know how much evidence there is to this, but there was a rumor that an MI5 or MI6 agent had come in through the heating and or the HVAC vents, and that was supposedly how he died. Because I mean, what did they say? He killed himself with a paper bed sheet? Really?
Paper bed sheet. He leaned over. He wasn't even in a bunk. So my first mental image was that like he hung himself from a top bunk. No, he hung himself from his bed post with a paper sheet, and those sheets are specifically designed to prevent people from being able to hang themselves. So,
well, let's just say, supposing for a minute now, paper can become incredibly strong
if layered.
Well, not even layered, but if you turn that into, you take it, you roll it into a rope, it becomes incredibly strong.
That's true. That's true. It's just a very, very, man.
The fact of this is that I think what's going on here is that this is a distraction. There is something bigger going on, and everybody has been speculating over this for years, and they have become so obsessed with this that they have bought their own speculation without any proof. And this is the whole point of the truth movement is truth is not based on speculation. It's based on what you can prove.
Correct. And we're also, I mean, S2 brought this up earlier. Remember, these files were not delivered to the DOJ. Who had their hands on the files? Who was cataloging all this information? I mean, there's 6 of one, half dozen of another ways that this could have been tampered with, and stuff could have been lost. In the military, I remember FedLog. I'm sure you've touched FedLog before, S2, and stuff just seems to go missing in there all the time, and that's all accounted for by the government. So and this is not me saying that I don't think that there is a possibility that the opposite could be true. Remember, and this is one thing that I do keep going back to. Dan Bongino has been one of the most widely respected truth tellers on the right for nigh on 2 decades now. He really became prominent with the Russia hoax and had tons of evidence about that. And so it's hard for me to believe that people would just do an entire 180 on this. Kash Patel has actually been very prominently respected for his exposure of the deep state and the blob, as he calls it. It's very difficult. The one person I don't really trust is their boss, and that's Bondi, because I think she is connected to the wrong political people, the political powers that be. But those two guys have been widely respected for a long time. I'm not saying they're, and it's impossible for them to be corrupted. Anybody can be corrupted, but it's difficult to see that. So, how do we?
One of the things I will add to this is that if they say that he hung himself, how is his hyoid bone broken in 3 places? You don't do that by hanging yourself. That's done by hands.
Yeah. So there are other alternative ideas out there. I know, you kind of alluded to this, and I'm going to let you talk real quick. I actually did not have this in the brief, but let me see if I can find this video real quick. So do a little bit of pontificating, and I will find this video that I want to share with everybody.
I'm not sure how much more I can pontificate over all of this. It's just like I said, it's just that everybody has bought into their own obsession, and they're not seeing the bigger picture of things. And I truly believe that there's something bigger going on behind the scenes, and that I don't want to say that Kash, Dan, or Pam are covering anything up. I think that they just are at the limit of what they are able to do, because I do fully believe that there is intelligence agency involvement in this. And if there was evidence, the intelligence agency have it. What really kind of blows my mind is that if there's no list, okay, that can't be true, because there are 20,000 images from Epstein's mansion in Manhattan. It's on multiple hard drives. That's a list. Mm-hmm. Flight logs to Pedo Island. That's a list.
Yep.
Bank accounts of the individuals that paid for services. That is another list. Why can't the FBI cross-reference all of these things and basically draw a string diagram of what leads to what?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. All right. So here it is. This is Alex Jones, which I've had my issues with recently. But he's got Judge Joe Brown, who's the famous TV judge, that is saying some interesting things about the deep state and how this is actually being used to blackmail. This is an alternative narrative. I can confidently say that this is the one that I hope is true, because the other one all leads us to into a dark path.
Trump has taken control. He didn't do it. They're shutting it down from everything I've seen. He is taking control of the FBI, CIA blackmail file. And now I suddenly see this deep state more and more rolling over. People say, well, that's very immoral to do. The argument would be it's too damaging to bring this act and bring down the whole government. I'm not endorsing that, but the best approximation I've got is they get the files, they raid the FBI. The FBI raided the FBI 5 months ago. When they hid the files in New York, they make the guy resign that was covering it up, and Comey's daughter's still there. They then load the gun, cock the gun, point at the deep state's head, and now suddenly the NATO, everybody's kissing Trump's butt, and it looks like Trump is now in control of the file, and obviously they're not going to read in the FBI. It's the CIA and Ratcliffe doing it. The best approximation I've got, and it is speculation, but I got a lot of points, is that Trump has decided to just use the file against them. What do you think, Judge?
I think you're right on point with that. I think a great deal of what happened with Smith and Millargo when the FBI raided it some years ago, and this thing that clearly they had no standing to go against about him supposedly having classified confidential documents, when, as we have discussed, the President of the United States under the Constitution as chief diplomat and commander-in-chief has been held to have absolutely unquestionable authority as to what he declares either confidential and secret or decides to declare is not such. So my sneaking suspicion is that a lot of what he refused to turn over to the archivist, which was unconstitutional in terms of what it was trying to put in place through statutory override of constitutional authority, which is wrong, is that there was wrongdoing that if he turned it over to the archivist was going to be turned over to the people who were recorded doing wrong and they would destroy it. So we had an obligation to the people to maintain control of that, which he did. And I see absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's been dropped. It's dead. It's not there, but he knows that. And I have a sneaking suspicion that when the investigations are completed and they're solid, we're going to start seeing something come out of it.
Okay, so there's the other theory floating around in circles out there of the possibility of this being used to leverage, and S2N mentioned earlier that it seems like the Supreme Court seems to be just backing Trump up left and right. So I don't know how much truth there is to that. It's a theory, and we're just here to kind of report what's being circulated and let you guys kind of figure this out with us.
It's like Kevin Costner said in the movie Untouchables. I told him his name was on the list. Whether it is or not.
Yep. That's a great reference there, by the way. Great movie, by the way. Not entirely factually correct, but a very good movie. But and here's kind of what the other side of this, and this is on Tucker Carlson. He had a guy on his show. I don't know this guy's name. This is a 12-minute video. I'm just going to play the first part because I think that really it's kind of the key moment of talking about the signals, maybe if we're arguing the polar opposite of this.
It is one of the most disgusting intelligence operations, I think, in United States intelligence history, rivaling some of the things, eventually that led to the death of President Kennedy. And the thing is around this time, is just like Kennedy, we all know the truth. We know that this document released by the Trump administration is complete bullshit. And I guess that maybe, just like with the Kennedy assassination, they expect us to just get over it in a period of time. And I genuinely think it's incumbent on anybody who was either supportive of the president, any United States citizen, to say, no, we demand like absolute and total transparency on this case, and particularly of these government officials. Do not use your platform to enrich yourself on these podcast platforms and constantly talk about Epstein and the Epstein files, eventually assume office, change on a dime, and expect us to trust you. That is not how this works. No. And in particular, in I think it's one of the most disgusting documents ever released by the United States government, because it said there was no blackmail. We're not releasing this information. Kash Patel has this new line about how we're not going to re-victimize women. Ask the Epstein victims themselves. They have been begging for this information to come to light, specifically to implicate the powerful men that victimized them and through which they were, and they were basically used for trafficking purposes to ensnare them in this high-level U.S. intelligence, Israeli intelligence operation, probably run in conjunction. And the trail of this entire thing just it enrages me. It actually enrages me.
He goes on to say that by doing this, they're signaling the people in power that we're going to protect you to the end. Both of those things could be plausible things, especially when you consider. I'm going to play one more video and then we're going to have a discussion.
Robert Larson in the chat's hitting this right on the head. This is the circus part of bread and circus.
Yeah,
he's absolutely right.
Yep. So December 23rd, 2023, Kash Patel is on the Glenn Beck show, and he asks him about the Black Book.
So who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is that. I mean, there's.
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts. That's how they play the game.
Well, unfortunately, he's the director of the FBI.
Well, and I'll throw something else in there too. The Nashville shooting didn't happen at a Catholic school, and that's a whole other rabbit hole I went down.
Yeah, it was a Christian school, not a Catholic school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so where are we at with Jeffrey Epstein? Obviously, we've played a lot of history. We've talked about a lot of this stuff, and we're going to get to the other player in this, probably a little bit smaller. Epstein's been the big dog for a long time, but recently we had another ruling that came down, and it does go to the same thing that S2 said, is that you have to be able to prove this, and we'll get into the Diddy part of this as well. Do I think that there's more to this story than what's being disseminated by both the DOJ, the media, and everyone else? Yeah. There's too much smoke for there to not be fire there. How deep and how wide this goes, we don't know. And what can you prove? What has been destroyed so far? What does not exist anymore? What is being shielded, and what is the reason for why it is being shielded? If it is being shielded to apply leverage to some deep state operatives, I'm not sure ethically I feel great about that, but to a certain extent, it may be a way to get things turned around. Because when it comes down to it, evil people will always be they will always be self-preserving. And so when it comes down to self-preserving, hey, your name's on the list. What do you want? S2?
Or they'll turn on each other.
Yes. And that's the other big key in this whole thing. So we're going to briefly talk about Diddy. We've got, just a few minutes left here before we close this out. But the big fundamental problem with Diddy not being charged with the really bad crimes was because the two main players in this whole thing, there was one unnamed and one was his longtime girlfriend, which is in this video. This is the famed video from 2016 of Diddy beating the crap out of her in a hotel hallway, which resurfaced. So we'll watch this.
Or not. We're not seeing anything, John.
Oh, shoot. Wait. Should be. Oh, I didn't switch. I apologize for that. Let's we run that back real quick. I'm sorry, folks.
Allegations of abuse against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The video, captured on multiple cameras, shows Combs assaulting his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hallway at a Los Angeles hotel in March 2016. A lawsuit filed by Ventura in November last year and settled the next day referenced actions that seem to match those seen in this video. There is no audio. According to the complaint, Combs became extremely intoxicated and punched Miss Ventura in the face, giving her a black eye, which, according to the lawsuit, prompted Ventura to try and leave the hotel room. The surveillance video obtained by CNN begins as she enters the hallway. The complaint says as she exited, Mr. Combs awoke and began screaming at Miss Ventura.
Now, there are multiple reports about this kind of activity towards Miss Ventura, his longtime girlfriend, and she kept coming back. when we're talking about legal proceedings, especially when it comes to domestic abuse, domestic violence, trafficking, all of these kind of things, if the victim has a chance to get away and then comes back, it does not do well for the judgment of the case.
That's called consent.
Correct. And while morally, I don't, personally on a moral stance, I don't like the whole consent argument per se. Because I think morality is morality. And that's kind of biblically based, but, in our justice system, that is a key player in this whole thing, because you cannot say they did an immoral act, or if they both consented to it, and that's the rules by which we live by. So that was really probably one of the biggest keys in him not getting hit on those hard charges of trafficking. And apparently, it was the same story with the unnamed victim that we don't know what the connection was to him. But could be a very similar thing. So that's really Diddy. And there's also some other playing things. I mean, we've all seen this video.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I just want to say how much I appreciate Puff Daddy for doing the kinds of work that he's doing, because he doesn't have to do this. But this is part of what is important about giving back.
We applaud you, and I want to apologize for not sweating, but I do this so much. I'm so cool. I just want y'all to see everybody I'm interviewing is sweating. I'm not even touching my brow. I'm so cool, and I want to apologize. I ain't trying to make you look bad or nothing like that, but I'm just so cool. We
T-shirt. I tell you, if he was wearing one of those fancy designer clothes he's designing, he'd be sweating just like me.
And and then there is the fact that Diddy admitted to having an island too.
Yeah. Very first time. Yeah, I have an island. This is just for inspirational motivation and uses only. You know what I'm saying? You don't know a lot of black men that come from the hood. They got an island. I got an island. It's called Love Island. So when I took you to Love Island, and then you realize that, you know, the plane landed, and then we had to float to another island. What was going through your head when we were going there?
I was gonna go to war by this nigga. He mad.
And here is the Dana. Thank you for all of the super chats. Really appreciate it. Helping the cause out. Really appreciate that. There is one thing though. This is the one thing that nobody's talking about. Diddy may not be is probably not going to be get off scot-free.
He's not. In fact, he's still in custody.
Yeah. So he could face substantial prison time after guilty verdict, warns O.J. Simpson's lawyer. I'm not going to play this video, but essentially, yeah. What got O.J. in the end was the civil suit, and after the criminal, and you know, there's still some of those things that could be looming too, that could put Diddy in prison for a long time and cost him a fortune in legal fees and payouts and settlements. So this story is not over yet. So, but where do we go from here? There's a couple of small news things that I want to get to here in a minute, but I think just to wrap this all up, this section is evil exists. Evil does terrible things to people. It dominates, it controls, it destroys lives. And unfortunately, in a fallen world, the only answer is that we try to make our justice system as just as it possibly can. Unfortunately, there are procedural things. There are things that have been built in to protect people, and for good reason. I wouldn't want to take away some of the protections of the justice system, because it actually protects innocent people too. That sword cuts both ways. And the reason we have some of these things is because innocent people have gone to prison. Innocent people have been put to death for crimes they didn't commit, and throughout the history of mankind. And so we want to be rigid. We want to have a beyond a shadow of a doubt. And like I said, there's a lot of smoke in both of these cases, and they were very connected to some very powerful people. But that's not actual evidence. Unfortunately, doing a video of Barack Obama is not concrete admissible evidence in court. And that's where you get in. Honestly, flying on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein is not evidence that you went and committed sexual assault on an underage female or male. That's the reality of this. And it's ugly and it's messy and it's gross. And it's immoral. And these people a lot of times walk away with lesser charges than what they should get by all justice. Now, they don't escape justice, not completely, because they're going to give an account to that before Almighty God someday. So we can rest assured in that. And now we just have to try and build the best world that we can with the best justice system that we can. Now, do I think Pam Bondi really kind of fumbled the football on these? Yeah. Do I think that maybe there's better options out there for Attorney General? Yeah, I'd definitely say so. But let's be careful. You know, I have my own predispositions for this, you know, because we've been told that Jeffrey Epstein, and I do believe, was a evil, immoral man. What does that mean? You know, so S2, I'll let you.
Yeah. I had a thought and it went right through my ears. It's just, it's like you say, it's what you can prove. And Robert Larson also says something else here. The bread part of this story is going to be a whole lot harder to swallow than these entertainment pantywaist. And this is something that I've said 5 years ago. When people finally start learning the truth about what's been going on, what's been done to us, the people, it's going to require changing your value systems, the things that you value. And I've seen this evolve over the last 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, actually. I've seen this evolve to where people don't believe the things that they used to believe anymore because the evidence is right in front of them. So, yeah, this is where we are.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate thing. And I do believe that to a certain extent, yes, as we've talked about earlier and Robert Larson so eloquently put, this is the circus part of the bread and circus. It is, look at this hand, don't worry about this one. You know, so that is the reality of this, and you don't know what the reasons for that is. We also don't know what's being done behind the scenes because not everything is out in the open, and you probably don't want it to be, guys, because as S2 just said, if you know what's been done, my goodness, that's probably that may have been part of the reason that Trump was so perturbed with him talking about that in a press conference, because he's like, guys, we've got way bigger issues going on right now than a pedophile. And I realize that's, you know, that's kind of tone deaf to the victims. But the reality,
we got World War III looming over our heads.
We have, and I'll get to this in a minute. We have, you know, one of the things that we're shifting to here at Survival Dispatch is giving you guys real-time, real-world terrorist alerts. And this stuff goes on everywhere. And, you know, I am very much a libertarian leaning conservative. I'm not a crazy libertarian that thinks that and Mitch, I'm not taking this lightly. This is not, I'm not saying that this is, yeah, I agree. People that do crimes against children, but when you're talking about World War III, you know how many kids are going to die and have their innocence stripped of them? A lot died in World War II. That's what I'm saying. You know, there's a lot of things going on in the world that have implications against innocent people. The innocent people that live in Iran under a murderous dictatorship. That's the reality of it. But this is from Sarah Adams. She's been following this, and actually she puts out a lot of really good stuff on X. The TSA has actually removed very oddly removed the removal of shoes. There was a reason for that, is because there were that they implemented the shoe check was because there were shoe bombs trying to be smuggled through airport security systems by terrorists, and now they have removed it. And she's been one of the tips of the spears on these invisible bombs that can both be a toxic gas that can actually kill people inside of a confined area, or an explosive type thing. Back in February, I went down and actually did an event with them and got a lot of useful information. I'm currently reading her book. This
Which
is
one?
a reality. The Benghazi. Yep. That's the one that I'm reading right now.
I'm staring at it on the bookshelf right now.
Yes, and this is a real threat that also threatens innocent people on a daily basis across the world. We are going to do a series on Islam for sure, and how the ideology grows and how the ideology is such a threat to us. You can just look at birth rates and know that they are slowly winning this war by attrition. And they're militant, and they want our way of life erased from the face of the earth, just like they did the early Christians in the Middle East in the 6th century. This is not a new play. They've been doing this for a very long time. They've gotten very good at it. Even though we look at them as primitive because we're way more technologically advanced, they're way more driven to do.
Oh, they're just mad because they can't take credit for Yeshua.
Right. And then we have absolute loons in this country who are embracing communists. And you know how I feel about communists. We're going to do these last couple things, then we're going to close it out. There's JD Vance talking about the leftist obsession with Zoran Mamdani, the new New York City mayor candidate. Let's watch this really quick. This is a very, very insightful talk.
Now, I may not speak for many of you, but I was once comforted by these contradictions within the modern left. How could privileged whites march around with a straight face decrying white privilege? How could progressives pretend to love conservative Muslims despite those Muslims' views on gender and sexuality? But the answer is obvious if you think about it. And it's a very, very dangerous and very sad answer. The radicals of the far left, they don't need a unifying ideology of what they're for, because they know very well what they're against. What unites Islamists, gender studies majors, socially liberal white urbanites, and big pharma lobbyists, it isn't the ideas of Thomas Jefferson or even of Karl Marx. It's hatred. They hate the people in this room. They hate the President of the United States. And most of all, they hate the people who voted for that President of the United States in the last election in November. This is the animating principle of the American far left. Now, to be clear, it isn't true of most of the people who vote for Democrats. Most of the people who vote for Democrats, they're good people struggling to get by, even if we think that they're misguided in their political judgment. But pay close attention to what the leadership of this movement says outside of the glossy campaign ads and outside of the general election tested messaging themes. And it's obvious what animates the leadership of the modern Democratic Party. The far left doesn't care that BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement, led to a spike in violent crime in urban Black neighborhoods, and it did, because that same movement also led to anarchy in middle-class white neighborhoods. They do not care that Islamism hates gays and subjugates women, because for now, it's a useful tool of death against Americans. And they don't care that too many pharma companies are getting rich from experimental hormonal therapies, because in the process, they're destroying the so-called gender binary that has structured social relations between the sexes, for the whole of Western civilization. And they certainly don't care that deporting low-wage immigrants will raise the wages of the native-born, because they don't mean to create higher living standards for those who are born and raised here, whether they're black, white, or any other skin color. They mean to replace those people with people who will listen to their increasingly bizarre ethnic and religious appeals.
You left out one thing.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
They want to destroy capitalism, period.
Yeah.
Capitalism encompasses everything of our way of life.
Private property ownership.
Private property ownership, the nuclear family, all of our values.
Yep.
They want to destroy capitalism, period.
Yep. 100%. And I think, as JD typically does, he so eloquently is able to put these things into words. But yes, and then that is the dirty little secret that not a lot of people know until you actually start researching it, is that when they say capitalism, they're talking about everyday people. They're not talking about big corporations. Guess what? Communists love big corporations. We found that out in 2020, guys, because they can use those corporations and leverage them. It's the World Economic Forum model of leveraging them and using those capitalistic organizations and companies to push their agenda. And then once they've outlived their usefulness, you dissolve them. And that's where revolution comes from. It's happened dozens of times over the last 150 years.
Well,
Anyway.
it just so happens they had a big communist convention this past week as well, talking about overthrowing the United States government.
Yep. So while that video was playing, I saw that Sotomayor was trending on X, and I was like, what in the world? Did we lose another liberal justice? But no, apparently Sotomayor and Elena Kagan have both called Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dumb. Which, if you've read any of her dissents in some of these rulings, they're so moronic and so unconstitutional. Like, I mean, I think she may be as mentally fit as Joe Biden in all actuality.
Oh, wait a minute. I got to put this back up. Hang on a second. I got to put this back up.
I know what you're putting back up.
Wait a minute. Here it goes. 1, 2. Come on. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
Let's see it. Drum roll. Oh, how fitting. Don't forget, guys, as soon as we're done with this stream, head over and sign up for a free account over at Substack, and that gets you access to the Saturday Watch Guide, which gives you a complete breakdown of everything that we have done throughout the week with thumbnails, links, and descriptions. And don't forget to do that. Also, remember our sponsors and make this available for you guys. CCWSA for self-defense coverage, Carnival, All American high quality meats. Eat meat for 10% off. In the description of this video on whatever platform you're watching it on, there will be links to all of these, and there are links in the sit rep as well. And then Compliant Technologies for police gloves for your local law enforcement agents. Trust me, I understand all too well how those things feel on your arms. So, but that's it for us. We're going to wrap it up there. I'm going to pray us out, and just remember that God is in control and God wins in the end. So we are on the winning side. We just have to stay the course and continue to believe that things are going to work out in the end for those who love our Creator. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, in the midst of all of this seemingly unsurmountable corruption and evil, and it seems like justice is not being done to our eyes, we know that you are a God of justice. And we pray, Lord, that the truth come out, that no government agency, no person in power can actually withhold the truth from coming out. And I pray that that be revealed so that we know what's actually going on, so that we know who is doing these evil things and who is connected to them. Lord, I pray that you do that in your own unique way, so that it is undeniably you, for your glory. Keep us safe, keep us aware, and keep us prepared for whatever comes our way. We know you are a God of preparation, and we pray that you help us to have good minds, to see those things and to be ready for what may. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, guys. Yes, and actually, let me throw this up here again. Doherty put this up again. Have a blessed night. We need your help in Kerrville, and here is the link to that. I actually can't copy it to put it in the chat again, but this will, if you guys pause and just write this down or type it into your browser, you should be able to find it. And if you guys feel led to donate to those victims in that community, I would ask that you please do so. But we'll be back tomorrow with another episode that Chris has prepared for you. Big things coming down the pike, and we are excited about all of them. And we'll see you guys soon. Until then, stay prepared, be vigilant, and God bless America.
Hoorah.
I shall never surrender or retreat. And I call on you, in the name of liberty and of patriotism, and everything dear to the American character, to come to our aid with all dispatch. P.S. The Lord is on our side.